Mhm.
Hello everyone, I believe we are back now. It should all be sorted. Everything should be running a lot smoother right now.
Hopefully it is. And we've still got 9 minutes and 20 seconds left to go in this broadcast, or not in the broadcast, that'd be a very short stream if it
Yeah,
were.
that would.
In this qualifying session, I would say. So, just under 9 minutes to go. That means we can still get a flurry of times on the board at this point, and certainly there are some drivers who are definitely going to need that assistance and that extra bit of time to get out there and get set up on the car, get going, all the blah 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 that you are used to at this point. So those including F1 Ellie, Yoshi Boy, Huvi Gaming, Exotic, and then Hubert Kozlovsky. That's how I'm going to pronounce that one. I might just call them Hubert.
Yeah.
That would be the safe option to go with there, I think. So, in terms of those out on circuit at the moment, well, it's handy that we are currently looking at Sushi Trash as they're about to cross the line. Let's go on board with them on a ride around Monza. Hopefully, they manage to keep it on the black stuff and between the white lines so we can follow them all the way around here. So, down into turn number 1 then, into the Rettifilio chicane. Turn 1, then turn 2 at the start of the race. That's going to be a hotbed for some slow-speed collisions because, of course, everybody piles in there. They go practically to walking pace through that particular couple of corners. Then we go through the Curva Grande with Sushi Trash keeping right to the right-hand side, taking the absolute shortest distance they possibly can as their teammate sets a new fastest lap of the session. Then through the Della Roggia chicane as we've just gone there, and then into the first of the two Lesmos. Getting right down there into that banked corner, trying to hit the apex as much as we can, and then into the second Lesmo. This then is where I say this is where there was a great big crash in 1981, where John Watson driving the McLaren MP41 ended up coming a cropper. But unlike every other car on the grid with an aluminium chassis, they were able to survive such an enormous impact. So, in terms of Sushi Trash, then they have gone down and through the Ascari chicanes and up towards now the Parabolica. This great big corner here where you're going to be braking, chucking the car in, and then trying to then carry as much speed as possible through. That being said, look, the quickest of exits in the world there on the Aston Martin Spa. And no, they're going into the pit.
Yeah, it was looking a bit of a clumsy lap there. He wasn't using all of the track, and I think halfway through he sort of realised that he was down on his time, so he wasn't going to waste those tyres because they can always be used in the race. But what we do have going on now is F1 Ellie about to start her lap as she is currently going through the Lesmos on her outlap.
Excellent, very good. I wonder, Alex, are we able to get a look at the track map? So that way we can sort of see whereabouts everybody is. We've got obviously Ellie's on her outlap at the moment, but we've got a number of cars who are, on time laps at the moment. Be interesting to see who's about to cross the line, see whether there's anybody that we can spot out here who might well be about to improve. We've got an Alfa Romeo coming around the Parabolica now towards the line. Is this going to be into the pits then for the Alfa Romeo? That's going to be Yanis. And yes, I believe it is. But across the line comes a McLaren. That is, I suspect, Remy Boy, because their time is suddenly no longer in the 1 minute 40s. Now, that might be something that's been the case for a little while now, and I've just not picked up on it. But there we are. It's interesting to see. But now, with the Red Bull of F1 Ellie, let's go on another lap around Monza. Going to be one of very few drivers, actually, on the circuit doing a time lap at the moment. Everybody else, I would wager, is either going to be on an in lap or on a time lap themselves. But you can see there from the mini map that's not very much in the way of traffic for them at all. There's the McLaren up ahead of Remy Boy, but they've already made their way into the first Lesmo now as Ellie makes her way through the first sector. And it's a 27.7 for that first sector, so in the great grand scheme of things, not entirely sure how that shapes out versus the rest of the field, but here we go then through the Della Roggia chicane, and now through the Lesmos, so through Lesmo number 1, and then down towards Lesmo number 2. Chuck the car in, see how the Red Bull sticks, and it sticks quite well, in fact. So, DRS opening up then at the back of that car, so that rear wing, if you're unfamiliar with Formula 1 and you're joining us for the very first time, first of all, hello. Second, that rear wing then, that opens up at certain parts of the circuit, allowing drivers to get a reduction in drag, hence the name, the DRS system. Drag reduction, in the way I've just described, it's the drag reduction system. But the DRS then working well on the Red Bull as they head then through the Ascari chicane, through the Parabolica now, and then F1 Ellie will power out and onto the main start-finish straight. And you can see there the track map is not all in red, so they've not invalidated the lap. Across the line they go. It's a 1:24.0. So definitely room to improve. Definitely areas of the circuit where more liberties could have been taken, I think, in terms of the lines being taken, especially on the exit of certain corners. I feel like a bit more adventurous could result in a huge amount of time being gained there for Ellie. Given the majority of the field's in the 120s, there's going to be some significant improvements come from her. Of that, I've no doubt, because of course she's now been able to score multiple times in this season, and as a result, is now sitting in P13 in the championship. Ooh, lucky P13, eh?
Of course.
We'll see whether that stays the same over the course of this race. They're actually tied on points with Croker at the moment, 11 points for both drivers. So
these Astons seem to be very close to each other right now. They might need to spread apart just a bit more, because I really feel like Sushi is going to go ahead and maybe get a bit of helping down the straights because of, well, the slipstream. However, right now it just seems like I feel like Dill must be towing Sushi, because why would Sushi be this close to Dill?
Yep, so here we are then, down towards turn number 1 we go. The two Astons line astern as they head into that first corner. You can see both of them taking both of the apexes rather well, actually, and if Sushi Trash is able to just mimic what their teammate is doing up ahead for the rest of this lap, get the tow all the way around, then they could be in with a good shot of getting a good time on the board here. Not to say that their time currently is not a good time at all. That's not the case whatsoever. It's at 1:20.5, given where the rest of the field is. That's not bad whatsoever. It just happens to be that D Hill is just a little bit of an alien in comparison to everybody else as far as their times are concerned. 1:19.5 is 7/10 faster than what Michael has been able to achieve in the Ferrari. Though, of course, Michael being in a Ferrari, they're going to hope for some home glory here, of that I've no doubt. So, down towards the Ascari chicane, then the two Astons still very close together, practically being pushed through the Ascari chicane now is D Hill by Sushi Trash. Through the Ascari chicane they go then, and oh dear, there's the mistake. You can't follow that closely when the car is that light through the Ascari chicane.
Especially Ascari. Ascari is such a difficult
massive
corner.
Older mistake.
It launches your car.
Very, very difficult.
If you clip the curb, you've got to just narrowly scrape it. But if you go too far on it, it does send you into the air. But this is why I thought Dill was giving him that slipstream here to just help his teammate out. And now he's going to pit, get on those fresh tyres. And oh, there's been a crash there with Panzat. What's happened there with Panzat? He must have dropped it through Parabolica. That's really unfortunate there for the Mercedes driver. It was looking quite promising for Panzer, actually. He made a few mistakes on his first lap, but he knew he could do better on the next one. So, are we going to see Dill be able to go out for another lap? I'm not entirely sure if we will.
Yeah, 1 minute and 30 odds to go in the session. Unfortunately, the yellow flag icon means that we can't see how much time is precisely left in the session, but I got a brief glimpse of it there. About sort of a minute and a half to go. There we are. It's now 1 minute 25. But yeah, that's unfortunate for the Aston pair, because that does mean that, as you say, D Hill is not going to be able to get themselves another time on the board to be able to improve their provisional pole position time. So if there is enough improvement in the tank for everybody else, then it could be that they start going down the order here. Now, Pansat and Sushi Trash, oh dear, look at that. That's Remy Boy in the barrier. Yeah, well, there we are then. They're clearly trying to mimic what John Watson did in McLaren in 1981. Absolute same part of the circuit that they crashed in. So there we are. Through the corners of the Ascari chicane we go then, riding on board with Exotic. They are headed down towards the Parabolica now on their outlaps, so they should be able to start their lap. There should be plenty of time for them to get that done. Ooh. And let's see then, through the third sector, it's yellow flags for a backwards Alpine. You can see there, luckily not on the racing line. So hopefully, as far as everybody else is concerned, that Alpine stays out of their way and means that they don't have to then lift off or in any other way compromise the lap. Shrek's Jesus has crashed on the exit of the Ascari chicane by the looks of the track map there. So that's unfortunate for them, for their qualifying session to come to an end. There was definitely some room for improvement there for the Haas driver, and it means that their teammate Hubert will be able to qualify them on this occasion. They're not going to fall any lower than where they are now. So, well, relative to their teammate anyway. So, time is now called on the sessions. So Bambi, jumps up to P2, 120.088, so not a bad time at all, but still half a second off what D Hill's been able to manage. We've then got an AlphaTauri in the wall there. You can see on the right-hand side between the two Lesmos, the same place where, of course, Lewis Hamilton crashed in 2009 to bring out a late race safety car. And now, on the run down towards the Ascari chicane then, Exotic is 6/10 up.
Too much
best,
curve.
and just too much. There we go.
There. That's the problem. When we're going through this race, we are going to see them go side by side into it. And back a couple of years back when I was with Exotic here fighting for the championship, we did the same thing and both of us DNF'd. So I think that is going to be a critical point in the lap where you're going to see cars collide, as Exotic doesn't seem to improve in time there due to that little curb jump.
They did actually manage to improve there on the timing delta in the top right bar screen. It was about 0.2 improvement. May not have improved their position all too much with other drivers setting faster times around them and ahead of them, but certainly an improvement in time. It was looking incredibly good up to that point, though. Across the second sector split, just before they hit the Ascari chicane, they were up by 0.6, 6.5 even. So it was potentially on for a very, very good lap indeed. But unfortunately for them, as you say, that mistake in that crucial part of the lap means that it's all come a cropper for them. The majority of times are now in. In fact, everybody is now done for this qualifying session. Everybody now either in the pits or the AI having taken control because they've passed the start-finish line after the session time has run out. So there we are then. D Hill takes pole position with Victorious jumping up in the Mercedes there into P2, so we'll start from the front row, much like George Russell did in the Mercedes today, of course, starting from the front row there from second place. We'll get the full list of qualifying results for you in just a moment, once we've gotten through the loading screen here, but that has been a respectable effort from all drivers in the field. So we've got D Hill, then Victorious on the front row, and then behind them from third down we will have Bambi, Michael, Croker, Hubert, Pansat, Hoovy Gaming, Sushi Trash, Exotic, Rolfie, Yoshi Boy, Cooper, Jack McCulloch, Yanis, Ideal Ben, Jamsey, Shrek's Jesus, F1 Ellie, and Remy Boy. So there we are. Ellie did improve then by about two and a bit seconds, so it was a good bit of improvement, but ideally improving by about 2 and a bit seconds from that time that they've posted would have been the much more competitive order there.
Well, it seems that the top 10 is only split by a second, which I think is going to be rather exciting for the race. There might be a bit of a DRS train, but I really feel like Exotic is out of position here, and he might shuffle up the pack a bit when he tries to make his way through to get to that top 5, that podium position. He's going to go for it. It's Exotic.
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, it's, it's one of these things where whilst Monza does produce some great racing in the real world, it sometimes doesn't quite translate in league racing in the virtual world. And that is because of the thing that you mentioned just there, that being DRS trains. Now, of course, we saw our fair few of them in the real race today. Again, no spoilers at all as far as, what happened in that race. But there were some DRS trains. It made some overtaking for certain drivers and cars a lot more difficult. And, as a result, these sorts of things do translate to the virtual world, and when all the cars have equalized performance, when all the drivers are, broadly speaking, around about that same pace as the top 10 are, then it does mean we are likely to see an awful lot of DRS use, but maybe not all too much in the way of overtaking. That being said, it's league racing, anything can happen, especially down into turn 1, of course, as well, and we may well get to see some drivers making some mistakes and bringing out safety cars and things like that, which might then start to mix things up, because whilst DRS trains are a pain, if you do have drivers then on different strategies and different tyre compounds and things like that, then that does then make things just a bit more interesting. We've now got the red lights coming on. We've got 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out and away we go, and it seems like a good start there for the Aston Martin on pole position there, and then the Mercedes getting swamped by all the cars behind. The Ferrari of Tia Michael jumping up into... You're seeing a crash. I'm still seeing the race start here. But there we are. Oh dear, Remy Boy, Hoovy Gaming retiring from the session. Pansat as well. That's an enormous set of crashes there. Cooper is stuck in amongst all of that as well, you can see. And
flat
that
is must have a flat tyre. It looked like Pansat got sideswiped there off the start. He bogged down a bit through the start there and then seemed to clip the rear tyre, and then he just got thrown off the track into the wall. And of course, there's nowhere else to go when you hit the wall, so we went back into the track and hit everyone.
Absolutely, yeah. 5-second penalty for Jamsey for ignoring yellow flags, so presumably they have overtaken during the safety car period and then not relinquished the position. So that's a shame for them, but you know these things are not exactly hidden. They do show you up on your screen in a great big message with big bright lettering as well. So that is a shame for them, but you know these things you've got to be aware of when you're racing. So through the and we've now got a migrating host as well. Now, that indicates to me that our host was one of the drivers who has DNF'd and has now left the session, which is a known way to get yourself desync and all the other things. And there you go. We're now seeing drivers crashing under the safety car because the host has left.
Oh,
and,
Lord.
Dear, oh dear. This is, this is pandemonium then. This is just...
This is unfortunate. Very unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, this is... I mean, we're now up to... what is it? It's going to be just shy of half the field gone now. We're going to have 13 drivers even, still remaining in this Grand Prix. Even less. In fact, Hubert's now left the session as well. There's a number of drivers leaving, in fact. And... yeah, this is not really what you want to see in league racing at all. Great big crashes and people, yeah, there we go. We've got people just now crashing into one another just for the hell of it. So, I mean, this makes life difficult for us because there's not a huge amount to commentate on. And, you know, at this point, Alex, what do we do? Do we just keep an eye out for a lobby restart, perhaps?
I feel like
something
we have
like
to keep an eye out for that, as I feel like I've just got a message coming through, and it might be to do with having to restart the session. Yeah. It is. Again, sorry for the interference here. Yeah, have to go ahead and restart the session. Sorry for that.
So there we are then. We will wait until the lobby gets formed up again. The problem, of course, is that every driver has to get into the lobby before then the qualifying order can be sorted. So we are limited on the drivers being able to get themselves into that lobby and get themselves readied up and so on in a quick fashion. And from my experience in other leagues, it's never a quick process. It always takes quite some time for drivers to get themselves back into a lobby that has been restarted, has been red flagged essentially.
Pretty much. Well,
and
we will be back in a few moments.
Hello again, everybody. So, we've got the grid sorted. We're now going into the race once again. Hopefully this time we're not going to have an enormous crash at the start and have our lobby host leave us, which then creates all the desync and all that sort of thing afterwards, and then the general devolving that happened in the course of that race start. So we'll give it another try, and we'll hopefully get some good racing underway shortly. Now then, we've got 23 seconds until the race start, I can see on my screen. So hopefully that's not too far away in terms of the actual delta, if you like, given that I'm watching a stream of a stream in order to try and commentate over this. So hopefully it's all fine. I'll tell you what, I'll give it the countdown on my end. So it's 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. How far off?
That was pretty bang on, actually, considering from the last test we did. So that's good news. That is good news.
That's very good news. That's very good news indeed. So let's see then. Jamsy saying in the chat they didn't pass under the safety car. The game bugged. Well, hopefully this time it doesn't bug again. We get a penalty-free start for everybody involved, not just Jamsy, but of course, you know, Jamsy's come and said hello to us in the chat. So you know, we hope that they do well anyway. They're now my pick for this race. In fact, there you go, Jamsy to win. But there we are then. So obviously it's taking a little bit more time than usual in terms of getting started, because of course everybody's now got to go into the setup screens, get their setup sorted for this race, and get ready to go. Now, I've had a brief glance over at another stream, and it is showing that towards the end of this race, if it runs to normal timings, we will get some rain. But now we've got 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out, and it's go, go, go for the second time this day. And it looks like a similar start for the Mercedes. They've been bogged down in that second phase of the start there. That's allowed the Ferrari to go right round their outside, maybe even challenge the Aston Martin into turn number 1. There's a big crash up in the background, and then the Aston Martin has side-by-side contact with the Ferrari of Michael, and now there's all sorts of cars going off into the runoff area. Not making turn number 1, then there's now all sorts of time penalties being applied there for corner cutting, and you can see that happening up and down the field, mostly in the midfield now. Those cars are now headed down towards the Della Roggia chicane. We've got all these cars nice and close together, the two Astons, with then Croker and Michael in the mix as well. It's a doubled up burger between them rather than a sandwich, shall we say. And then look at this, Ideal Ben going up the inside of Hubert into the first Lesmo, but it doesn't quite work out for them. Instead, they have to fold in behind and just follow on after the Haas. But now, out of the second Lesmo, they've lost even more time, but luckily for them, the car behind has lost even more time to the McLaren. Now, headed down into Ascari chicane, the Williams there of Croker had a little bit of a look to the inside, but then just ended up missing out to the Ferrari there. Now as they power down the back straight and towards the Parabolica, there is a 1.2 second lead for D Hill at the moment, and that is going to be absolute music to their ears to discover they've gotten such a gap on the first lap. Through the Parabolica they all come then. Ferrari goes wide and over the track limits. Hopefully they don't get a warning or a penalty for that. And now D Hill comes across the line on those medium tyres to set our first lap done and dusted in the record books. Now, down towards turn number 1 here, this is going to give us some indication as to how much straight line speed is on these setups, because of course no DRS until lap 3. And there we can see the McLaren trying it round the outside of the Haas. The Haas then goes deep on the brakes, manages to get back up the inside. The McLaren's then got to avoid a Mercedes that's gone straight over the runoff area there. And now as they power around through the Curva Grande, we take a look at Pansat, and they are now trying to chase after Jamsy.
Yeah, it looks like Pansat there just spun on the exit. He was trying to get a really good start there, and I'm not sure if he has damage, as there's been a car just stopped there on the corner in the middle of the racing line. Not the smartest thing to do. And Vic, after such a good qualifying, is now down in P10. What has happened to the Mercedes right now? Going through the Lesmos, dipping it on the gravel. It's not going that well here for Pansat, as they also both have a penalty.
Yeah, they do, and that's obviously, you know, not the way that they would have wanted their race to pan out, but given that we've got still a long way to go, 27 laps in this 50% Grand Prix distance here, there's still plenty of time for Pansat, Victorious, Bambi and Rolfie all to get themselves into a better position after these time penalties are applied. Of course, they will either be applied at their next pit stop or at the end of the race, whichever comes first. That being said, though, there's going to have to be a pit stop at some point between now and the end of the race for these drivers. So there we are then.
There's going to have to be a pit stop here for Pansat. Is a broken wing.
Yeah.
It's a broken wing.
Broken wing, broken entry board there as well.
As
Speedy in the pit lane too, just to compound the problems there. 10 seconds worth of time penalties now on that Mercedes car. So they're all going to wait, get ready to go.
Seems like an eternity.
It does indeed. Now, given all of the drama that's happened elsewhere in the field, they might then be able to find themselves back up into a good position later on if there's any more of the shambles that we've seen so far. But given that everybody seems to have started behaving now, that's maybe something they have to hold out for later on. Now, in terms of moves on the circuit, currently Remy Boy and F1 Ellie having the closest battle of anybody at all on the circuit at the moment. The two cars side by side there for a brief moment as they headed through whichever corners they were going through. And now then we focus more towards this battle on the podium here between Croker and Michael. Croker in the Williams, right behind the Ferrari. And I get the sense that the Williams here has the pace over the Ferrari, just not been able to really extract it without the use of DRS. Now, of course, did lap 3 now. And as we go up towards the Parabolica here, it's going to be all about the exit here of this particular corner. If the Williams is able to carry more speed through than the Ferrari, keep within that sort of 3/10 or so gap to them, I suspect there's going to be a move here in the not too distant future. So here we go then, DRS open on the Williams, not on the Ferrari. They are going to sit in close behind, just tuck up under the Ferrari, get up the inside. The Ferrari's now got to be looking on their mirrors though for Sushi Trash in the Aston Martin behind. And then, oh, big lock up there, it looked like from somebody, big puff of smoke somewhere, but now Croker's been able to manage it. They get round the outside. Michael has dropped down the order massively there. They may have just tried to go side by side, end up catching on the Williams perhaps, and they've lost now to Sushi Trash, Exotic, and Hoovy Gaming.
Yeah, I think he just caught him again on the first corner. It seems to be causing a lot of problems here. I think he just pushed him a bit wide and then he went onto the gravel there. I see his rear end is so unstable. He must have lit up the rears going through these chicanes. He just doesn't seem... Look at it. It's just twitching through the Lesmos there. So unstable. It's just not suiting his driving style that he needs right now. It seems there's so much temp in those rear tyres, and it looks like Hubert is now going to start eating him up, and he needs to cool those tyres some way. But now he's going through one of the toughest corners in the track with a dodgy rear end, but he's kept it stable, and I think they're returning to their original temps now.
There we are then. That is going to be the hope, at least, on board the Ferrari on the red car. Of course, it'll be tomorrow that the new update drops for F122 that will include the special Monza livery that Ferrari ran today and over the course of the weekend. So, a bit of a shame we don't get to see it here in a virtual Monza race, but I'm sure that we'll get to see plenty of it in the weeks to come. There we go. We see Exotic getting by Sushi Trash there.
There has been a crash.
That means the red
over down by Ascari. Can't really get to it that easily, but we can just possibly see it here on the right side. Well, we can't really get a good camera angle of it, but it was just there at the end of Ascari. I knew that corner was going to cause some problems, as Jack has just done the same at Ascari again.
Yeah, there we are. A little bit earlier in the corner this time, so previous crash was on the exit of the chicane. That one looked to be towards sort of the middle part of the Ascari chicane. That being said, the dot has now moved, so it may well be that they actually did crash at the exit, but that has now been recovered. Those marshals very efficient, and away we go once more then. No safety car, no virtual safety car, and instead those cars cleared away quickly. Now then, we're on board with D Hill, who's been able to amass quite the gap now back to Croker and Exotic, who are of course now fighting for best of the rest and that fabled podium position. Of course, second and third so far in this race. The Red Bull seems to have a good bit of pace on board them. They've been able to make a few overtakes these last few laps. Now Croker, who was of course making the moves on Michael not too long ago, down into turn number 1, is going to have to look in their mirrors and hope that the Red Bull doesn't do the same to them. But I suspect that as we go now down into turn number 1, it's done even before we get to the braking zone here. The Williams is going to have a look to the inside, but that's not really going to come off for them at all, not unless they get absolutely dire brake bravery there. And, there we can see a little bit of contact between the Alpine and the Haas further back, and that's allowed Michael to close up to the pair of them. And that's potentially up the inside into Curva Grande for the Ferrari. Yes, they are. And now, is that Alpine going to defend to the inside? Yes, they do. That then allows Michael to try and get one round. Oh, they turn in way too early. They hit the Alpine. That is just some poor racecraft from the Ferrari there, I'm sorry to say. But you can't just turn into a car that is alongside you there. That's not a good racecraft at all. So Michael then potentially driving angry after being tapped around themselves during that overtake that was made on them by Croker. But we didn't get a good angle of that one, so we couldn't really determine whether it was a racing incident or one driver's fault or another. But certainly in that instance, it'd be hard to make a case to say that Michael wasn't at fault there.
Yeah, it was such a dodgy sort of like challenge. They went in and then they broke so late on the wrong side of the track to brake late on. And as well as that, I saw some carbon fly up in the air, so I feel like someone must have some damage to their underfloor or something to their front wing. As we always see Michael on this corner really understeer super wide, which loses him time, as that's Sector 3 seems to be his worst. But as we see here, Bambi putting on the pressure against Hubert here, as he's going to go ahead and go into the first corner and try and not go on the grab around the outside. It's a brilliant overtake there, really well controlled.
Absolutely, yes. Squeezed about as much as is really allowed in the rules and in general sporting conduct, I think it's fair to say. The Haas, though, isn't finished. They're getting alongside through Curva Grande and down towards the De La Rocha chicane, but no, it doesn't end up coming off for them, so the championship leader up into P6.
It looks like the Haas there of Hubert did not want to challenge it. He saw what happened previously and he didn't want to risk it for himself. He knows that he can come back later and challenge them, but he does seem to be out of the DRS right now, as Bambi seems to be flying ahead, catching Michael at a rate of knot, and he's going to go into his Scari and hopefully not drop it like two others have today.
Absolutely, yeah, and it is such a difficult thing to do. You see them all, even there, just a little bit of an oversteering moment for the AlphaTauri as they come out of the Ascari chicane. It is somewhere where you can just load up the car wrong if you're just a bit too aggressive on the steering or use too much curb, or I suppose if you're running higher than 60 frames per second, then it does mean that you end up coming into a bit of a sticky situation as far as that's concerned, but certainly no sticky situation for Bambi now as they line up another overtake here. Absolutely carving their way through the field. They move to the inside, down towards turn number 1. They get past the Ferrari. The Tifosi go mellow, and and up the inside goes the AlphaTauri driver. Makes it look easy as they make their way through there. So
looks like it's
up into P5.
Constant battle here.
Sorry, go on.
It's going to be a constant battle here, I think, with Michael and Bambi, as they're going to take it down, and Michael's going to just pop it around the inside there and try and block off the exit. And now Bambi's got to have the dirty air here through the Lesmos, and Hubert, as he thought earlier, is going to sit back nicely and watch this play out and take up an opportunity later.
Absolutely. I think just from the body language of these cars, you can see the AlphaTauri looks just a lot more balanced, a lot more poised. The Ferrari is just struggling and oversteering out of so many corners and just really trying to, get the power down and maybe a bit too early. And that has then meant that down the straight down towards Ascari, it's then a move gained for the AlphaTauri driver, and they are back up into P6.
Safety car.
P5 rather.
Safety
now
car.
we have a full safety car. Full safety car.
I wonder what that happened
there.
Can't see anyone crashed on the track right now. I'm not too sure
just
what happened
a
there.
slow-moving car on the circuit there has come a cropper, and now we're going to see a flurry of cars into the pits. Now that means that the likes of Bambi and that was so incredibly cheeky. Look at that!
Just
Down the
overtook
outside
him.
into the pit lane entrance. That had shades of Sebastian Vettel back in China a few years ago. And those of you who remember during his Ferrari days. Now, speaking of Ferrari, we've got then Michael and a couple others will be serving that 5-second time penalty they got at the race start here, before then the Maranello-based team get to work and getting that car serviced and out. But yeah, that was some brave stuff from Hubert. Now, that just means that ultimately it's come to nothing. You can see there, Michael's been able to get back by again over the course of the stops. So it might well be that Hubert had to do a nose change, or maybe the mechanics just were going a little bit slower. But yeah, there we are. So the position regained, but certainly a very, very entertaining way for them to get it. And Michael gets a 3-second, is that a 3 or a 5-second time penalty for corner cutting? It's a bit pixelated on my screen. I can't quite pick out the number there. But it's a time penalty regardless for skipping that first corner. And really, I mean, you're under safety car conditions. You don't need to be barreling down into turn number 1 at such speeds where you miss that corner.
And Remy's got
so
a 5
real
second
own
there.
goal, self-inflicted injury there. Speeding in the pit lane, Remy boy, a driver really who's been in the wars today.
Yeah.
And we then switch our focus to F1 Ellie, who's now in P13, having gone into the pits. Got a set of hard tyres on that car, and is going to be hoping to make their way up towards the points, which is just, of course, a few positions away. And with it being a full safety car, everybody will be bunched up. The pack will be all jumbled up together. Then everybody will be able to start making their way towards battling one another once more. But as we get ready for all that to happen, if you've switched to the hard tyres at this stage in the race, what do you reckon then in terms of getting to the end from here? We're lap 9 of 27. Will those hard tyres hang on?
Yeah, they definitely will last here. It doesn't seem, they don't really have those like fast corners which really wear them down. However, the problem with the hards now is they can easily last till the end. It's just getting the temps in them. And the problem is when you're behind a safety car, brand new hard tyres, they're not scrub, so getting heat into them is next to impossible behind the safety car, so you're always going to bog down on that restart.
Absolutely, yeah. And we can see then just the level of work that the drivers are having to do now in terms of the tyre temperatures, having to weave this way and that to try and get some temperatures in. Now, in terms of the end of this race, though, this is going to be the real interesting thing, because, of course, I mentioned earlier on I had one of the drivers' streams up briefly to have a look at them getting set up, and I noticed, whilst I was having a look at all of that information that was on the screen, that there was heavy rain predicted for the end of the race. Now, that was, of course, when the race was going to be running its predicted time, around about 45 minutes or so for the race. But now, with a safety car, having slowed everybody down for a few laps, lap times are going to be, in excess of about 2 minutes, I would wager, as we see Michael just skipping over some more curbs there. That means then that, do we end up seeing those on the hard tyres now really getting into a good position to then have a gamble at the end of this race? Because if that heavy rain comes, there is going to be a period of time where the track will be getting wetter but not totally wet, and therefore the dry tyres will continue to do their job. But by that stage of the race, the tread will have worn down, so it'll be more difficult to keep that temperature in those tyres. And on a track that's getting wetter, and that is Yoshi Boy crashing under safety car. Safety car is in this lap, so they're clearly confident that they can get it cleared in time, but that's a bizarre incident, the likes of which I've not really seen before. So there we are. We get ready to go once more here in this safety car period. And, we've got these cars all starting to just get their weaving going on. Now, the main thing that the race leader needs to do, of course, is not get too close to the back of the safety car as it's still coming around the final turn and towards the pits. Is that F1
parked on the side there? All the way back there, it seems like F1 is just parked on the side of the track.
It does, yes. That is a stationary Red Bull dot, and I don't know why.
As well as Yanis.
But yeah, maybe there's been an incident under safety car, but certainly away we go once more then, and the game continues and the race continues as well. So down into turn number 1, then there's a tap up the back for Croker from the Aston Martin. They get another hit up the back as well. So the Aston there of whatever his name is has ended up meaning that Croker loses the position to Hubert as they head on the run down towards the De La Rocha chicane. They hit the Williams twice up the back there. It's bizarre. I mean, it's the restart the race. You don't need to be doing that. But look at this then, potentially around the outside. No, better
that's
traction.
Exotic that's just crashed.
Yeah, Exotic is round. So that's one Red Bull having a mysterious safety car incident and one having a not so mysterious crash into something to lose that front wing you can see there. But Croker now back behind the Haas of Hubert, with Michael then closing in behind them. Michael, of course, has had a questionable approach to race combat so far, and it seems to be once again as the hand goes up in the cockpit for the Williams. And then a very, very big gap later to the Ferrari back behind. That's then a big incident for the Mercedes of Victorious there, who's come a cropper at the exit of Viscari. Whether that was contact with another car or whether that was all on their own dropping it there, I don't know, but that's something we've got to now keep an eye on. It looks as though from the track map that F1 Ellie's gotten going again, and so has Yanis. So hopefully whatever's happened there between the two of them is now completely resolved, although I'm sure that they will both be hoping for a safety car again at this point, because of course that will let them get back into the race. Now then, into turn number 1 we go. Michael gets up the inside of Ideal Ben initially, but then it turns to the outside in the second part of the Rettifilio chicane. And now then, it means that Ideal Ben has the position. Jamsey is now up behind them. Our pick for winner, of course, today. And not at all biased from them coming and saying hello in the chat. And they now continue to follow around the McLaren. They're even getting towards making a move into Lesmo 1. Yes, here they go up the inside. The McLaren has to give them a little bit of space. And then on the exit now, it means they're alongside and even in front by the time they get to Lesmo number 2. That's a brilliant bit of racing from the Williams driver. But now it's not all over. They're going to have to just now hope and pray that they've got the straight line speed. They've got the ability to keep this McLaren behind. It's getting close now down into the braking zone for Ascari. The McLaren completely chops the front end of the Williams off, gives them no space whatsoever, despite the fact that they were alongside. And, well, if I was a steward, I wouldn't be looking quite so favourably upon that bit of action here. But what I can at least look with a bit of favour on is as Michael goes up the inside, Jamsey into the bollocker, and then we've got Sushi Trash again, going wide and potentially making a mistake in the braking zone, hitting another car. But yeah, we were talking about DRS trains over the course of this race and how they're very common in league racing. That certainly hasn't seemed to be the case so far, as a full safety car gets called out now once again. Our second one in about as many laps. And away we go once more. That's, of course, going to be of great benefit to those at the back of the grid who've had incidents various, I suppose you could say, and will allow them to catch back up to the rest of the field. Now, at this stage, lap 13 of 27, we are getting reasonably close now to the halfway point. In fact, actually, realistically, it's about halfway around this lap we'll be at the halfway point in the race. So at this point, what are we thinking? D Hill has that commanding lead from
he seems
everybody
to be
else.
running away with it, to be honest. He's going ahead off the restart. He had Exotic at about 8/10 when the first lap was done. And then Exotic started getting swallowed up and he started getting aggressive. He wasn't composed. And then he just dropped it. I can't remember what corner, but I believe it was one of the Lesmos he might have dropped it on. Though what I've noticed is it seems to be a bit more scruffy with a safety car restart rather than a actual race start. Race start looks pretty controlled. There are a few bumps and taps, a few love taps here and there. However, off the safety car restart, everyone was full aggression. Everyone had that ERS battery full and they all just went for it. And there's only enough space on track for a few cars. So when you try and stick them all in one part, it's almost impossible. And we've just seen that as Vic, Exotic, Panzat, Sushi have just not come off well from it.
Oh, yeah, and it's oh dear, and we've got incidents under safety car. Michael is pointing the wrong way. Remy Boy now has no front wing. Sorry, I apologise. It was Ideal Ben has no front wing, in fact, after they have hit the back of Michael. Again, under safety car conditions, I don't know why you'd be so close to the back of another car to allow that to happen.
That's definitely got to be looked at. Yeah, that is.
Yeah, I mean, that's got to be looked at by the stewards, but also I think the driver just needs to have a look in the mirror, really, and go, well, that was really stupid. Why did I do that? You know, I'm not here to sing anybody's praises if they're going to be doing silly things like that. If we see good racing, I'll praise that. But yeah, no, that was a grade A silliness. Yeah, if I was to be kind about it.
We know this league can produce great racing. We've seen it. Look at them going through the Lesmo side by side, following it through Ascari, just behind each other. It's been racing upon racing for laps on end. However, this is just where it sometimes gets let down during the safety car. We have to sort of space out a bit more, realise the boundaries of our car and not be really close to that car in front. Maybe when the safety car's in, then you're going to see Hubert really up close to Dill, trying to snatch that opportunity of getting first place. But when you're so far down in the pack and the safety car is not going in, you don't need to be risking it like that.
No, absolutely not. Now, the McLaren here has got to go into the pit, surely. There's no hope of staying out on that set of tyres. And Oh, not that set of tyres, I should say, but on that front wing. Now, the mediums, I would imagine, will get to the end of the race by this stage, so they've got a fresh set available. Then it would be a good time to get them on the car. But if instead all they've got is softs available to them, then
he's not
and they
going
continue
in.
on.
You saw there Michael with another broken front wing. He went into the pits, but I don't know what the Ideal Ben's doing here. It's a track, when he goes through a Scari with that much understeer, he's going to go straight on, and a curb is just going to offset him, and he's probably going to damage more of his car. It's just not a smart or safe thing to do. Surely he has to come into the pits.
No. The thing which is confusing me in particular is, and what I'm dreading, really, to be honest with you, is the restart. Because, of course, they're going to go through Parabolica. Parabolica, they might be okay, because there's not a huge amount of steering lock that you need to apply through that corner. So it might be a bit understeery. But then, of course, when they get to turn 1, that's an area of the circuit where you need as much downforce and as much braking performance as you possibly can. And they've not got one of those things. So I just think that we're going to end up seeing an almighty crash with Ideal Ben going into the back of some cars in front of them because they won't have that front-end downforce.
Or he could go and play it too cautious, brake too early, and then a car behind him won't brake as early as that and go into the back of him. It's just not a smart thing to do on this track off the restart. He must come into the pits.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's it's a different thing, of course, if you are in a safety car at the end of the race where there's only, say, 2 or 3 laps remaining when it comes in, and as a result you end up seeing an opportunity to just stay out, try and muscle your way to contention and keep hold of those points, because obviously at a late stage in the Grand Prix, even if you've got brand new fresh soft tyres on and everybody else is on worn tyres, the likelihood of you getting by everybody to get back to your original position is fairly low. So it's it's one of these things where we've got to kind of just take it with a pinch of salt for now. Maybe they've been running a 0-0 wing strategy, so the loss of a front wing is actually not much different to their setup anyway, but we will wait and see. And now at this stage, if the safety car was going to come in on this lap, we would have gotten the call by now, you would have thought. So we've got at least one more lap worth of safety car running to go. And that then is going to be fantastic for Victorious, who's only now getting onto the back of the train. That then means that all the remaining runners in this field, a quarter of the runners gone now, 5 retirements so far in this race. And we'll have at least, as I say, one more lap worth of safety car running. And to give you a rundown of your order so far then, we've got D Hill, Hubert, Croker, Bambi, Ideal Ben, Sushi Trash, Remy Boy, Jamsey, F1 Ellie, Exotic, Pansat, Michael, Hoovy Gaming, Victorious, and Rolfie.
It's good for Ellie here, isn't it? She's P9 in the points, no damage to her car, and I feel like she has this sort of way of going where if she doesn't get into any trouble and everyone else gets into trouble, she just slowly builds her way up the pack and then eventually gets into those point positions.
Absolutely, yeah, and that is the name of the game in an awful lot of league racing. Sometimes qualifying doesn't really matter, you just need to survive the race, and then points, podiums, etc. are all but guaranteed. But we will wait and see, of course, because it could be that by saying all of this, we may well have commentator cursed her. Now, that's not what I would like to do, but so therefore, I'm going to be a coward, and I'm going to say, Alex said it, not me.
Yeah,
so
sorry,
there
guys.
we go.
Sorry, guys.
I'm now protected. There we go. So, as we watch then from the perspective of D Hill, as they continue to race around behind the safety car, the Aston Martin safety car, of course, which is the same shade of green as the car they are currently driving. The Astons, of course, having mixed fortunes so far in the real F1 season. They've had their highs, they've had their lows. Certainly seems to be a circuit-dependent car, but here, no circuit dependency about it at all. D Hill is absolutely having a grand old time there in the Aston, and their teammate Sushi Trash, whilst they've been in the wars a little bit today, certainly been doing reasonably well as well. Now they are technically a reserve, so that's presumably why their points are not counting towards Aston Martin's total in the Constructors' Championship. But with all that said and done, the safety car is now heading its way around the Parabolica. It needs to get back into the pit lane in enough time such that we then don't get the auto braking feature if the lead car is too close, of course, to the safety car, and then D Hill goes. So they have set off, they have got their foot down, The safety car is pulling into its slot at the end of the pit lane. They have absolutely left everybody napping. And now Croker is maybe going to have a think about something up the inside of Hubert here. So into turn number 1 we go. Oh, look at this then. McLaren Ideal just goes straight on at that chicane. Absolutely what we predicted would happen. Ideal just goes straight through, gets a time penalty for corner cutting. And, I mean, it was utterly predictable. Go down into turn number 1 with no front wing, and your car just won't stop. Let's watch then here. They go through the chicane. The car seems to be behaving a bit more through there, so it might be. And Remy Boy is again in the wars and falling down the order. Michael is making their way back up the order, in fact. F1 up to 7th now, so again, this is what we're talking about. You know, you just need to stay out of trouble in league races like this, and eventually the rewards start to move their way towards you. So, Ideal Ben then, with no front wing, is continuing on.
Let's see how he does one of the toughest corners.
Exactly, yeah. So through Ascari we go then with the McLaren, and they seem to be able to navigate it okay so far.
Must come into the pits.
Yeah, that's the question. Will they come into the pits or not? Now, as they head down the back straight here and down towards the Parabolica, and get onto the brakes, turn the car in as much as they possibly can without that front wing attached. They are losing time. You can see it visually, just the gap between the two cars, them and Sushi Trash. That gap is coming down and down and down all the time. And now then, Sushi Trash is closing in with no DRS, of course, because it's not been the 3rd lap since the safety car came in, so therefore it's not been reset yet, but certainly in a straight line. They were getting closer, but not close enough to really be able to make anything happen. Through the corners, though, the few that there are on this Monza circuit, they are going to be able to close in and get that bit, a more competitive position versus the McLaren. I wouldn't be surprised if there's even an attempt here down into the Della Roggia chicane. But no, they haven't been able to get alongside the McLaren here, but then under braking, they just close up even more. And look at that, they've got so much more turn in. Look at this now, it's going to be a move up the inside in the first Lesmo. In fact, before they even get there, the Aston Martin is by. So Ideal Ben now just losing so much time. There's still about 9 laps to go or so in this Grand Prix. So it's not as though they are completely out of it if they were to pit now, but there seems to be a stubborn refusal on their part to come in and get that wing changed. F1 Ellie is even starting to catch up to them here. The gap was about 3.5 seconds rather, at the start of this lap, and this despite the fact that Ellie is having to defend from cars around them. They are still closing in on the back of Ideal Ben here. Now then, down towards the Parabolica they go. Michael moving up the inside. So Ferrari versus Red Bull. That's a story we've seen plenty of times in 2022. DRS has now been re-enabled as the race leader crosses the start-finish line. Hoovy Gaming is having a look up the inside of Ellie as well. Might even have a look up the inside of Michael too. Down towards turn number 1 they go. Michael and Hoovy Gaming side by side on that run down towards turn number 1. The Alpine versus the Ferrari. Alpine gets ahead even before they get towards the braking zone now. The roles are reversed. The Ferrari is now on the inside. Has gone way too deep on the brakes there, it looks like. End up clattering into the side of the Alpine. Now as they power round through the Curva Grande, the Ferrari has the inside line, but the Alpine seems to have the traction, seems to have the downforce. So down towards the Della Roggia chicane they go. They're still side by side. And now then, this is where, of course, there was contact earlier, and Michael swoops around the outside. Not a huge amount of space given to the Alpine, and they keep their place. They consolidate 6th place here in this race, but given that DRS is now enabled and we've got a zone coming up in just a moment, I would imagine this battle is far from over, as just behind, F1 Ellie is now being harassed and passed by Rolfie before they even get to that DRS zone. So unfortunate for them, not a great exit there clearly, but now then, the inside, or rather defensive to the inside, goes Michael, and swooping around the outside goes the Alpine.
Just caught the back end there.
Michael there. Yeah, exactly. They had a bit of an oversteery moment, Larry moment down towards the turn. Now, if I were the Alpine here, I would just allow the Ferrari to sneak ahead slightly, because there's that DRS detection line. They're now going to go through Parabolica. They've got the speed in the corners, clearly. And now if they're right tucked in behind the Ferrari, got the DRS, they're going to be able to make the move, get down towards turn number 1 with no worries at all from the Ferrari about being harassed. And now, as they head down towards it, there we go. Alpine up the inside, able to cut back in front of the Ferrari into turn number 1. And on the brakes nicely, gets to the second apex, maybe missed a bit on the first, and now all they're going to need to do is just defend down into the Della Rocha chicane. If they can keep the Ferrari behind there, then they should be able to keep them behind for the rest of the lap. But Ferrari's going to take a look up the inside. This is a position where they've not really been before. They're going to try it. No, they're going to then tuck back in behind. They get on the brakes initially on the inside, but they lose out. And now the Alpine is starting to just ever so slightly gallop away.
Yeah, you can see here on Michael's dash there that he has literally no ERS available or anything to play with, as he just seems to be using it below 10%, harvesting all the time, which means he's got no power for an overtake. He needs to sit back one lap, he needs to use the DRS to help him and just harvest. He needs to maybe use his tyres a bit more, but then not use any ERS, but I feel like he's going to go ahead and breeze past him down the pit straight now.
Might even be on the back straight here. The Alpine defends the inside. The gap is closing all the time between the pair of them. Then into the braking zone. The Ferrari seems to hit the apex nicer, but then the car just looks a bit more twitchy from the onboard here. Now onto the start-finish straight they go. It will be DRS in just a few moments' time for the Ferrari. I would imagine we're going to see, much like on the previous lap, the Ferrari will get up the inside and be able to come back to the racing line if they so choose before they even get towards turn 1. No! Instead, it's side by side in the braking zone. The Ferrari goes very deep indeed, basically cuts off the entire first corner there. Nowhere for the Alpine to go alongside, and then gets back up into P6. This fight then continuing despite all that we've seen. Ideal Ben must have pitted at some point or had an incident, because they are now down in P14. It's the first time I've noticed that for a few laps there. And now through the Della Rocha chicane we go, and Michael is still just ahead of Hoovy Gaming. Michael, of course, carrying that time penalty, so it's all going to be for naught, unfortunately, unless, of course, Hoovy Gaming ends up getting as many penalties as Michael is currently carrying. And then, oh, wow, good sudden change of cameras there, as Bambi is having a look through up the inside of Hubert into the Ascari chicane. Doesn't quite work for them, and now the AlphaTauri is potentially vulnerable to Croker behind in the Williams. Now, that being said, the gap between them has seemed to stabilise down that back straight. So, now onto the brakes, chucking the car into Parabolica or Alboreto, depending on your preference. And now down the start-finish straight, you can see there the flashing red light on the back of the Haas. That means they have less than 10% of that ERS remaining. And now on the run down towards turn number 1, it's DRS open for the AlphaTauri. It's also DRS open for the Williams. Does Croker think about following through on the AlphaTauri? No, they don't. But the AlphaTauri then is going to stick it all the way around the outside in turn number 2. They're then going to just give a little bit of a nudge towards the Haas as well. And then on acceleration, it looks like the AlphaTauri's just got a bit more in the way of ERS to propel themselves out of that second corner. And then through turn 3, the Curva Grande rather, and then down into Della Rocha. That's what I meant to say. That's then where the benefit comes. So championship leader now moves up into second place in this race, and now has 4.6 seconds, 4.5 seconds in fact, the gap to close down on their championship rival. But through all of that fighting, we've got to remember that Bambi, of course, is carrying a time penalty. So they need to gallop away, as befitting a deer, I suppose, from Hubert and Croker behind here to try and maintain their position on the podium. If not, then they're going to end up losing it by the time we get to the end of this race. That being said, Hubert is clearly struggling to follow through Ascari. There was a definite sense of understeer, then oversteer through there for them, so a bit apt given that they're driving the Haas, and that's exactly what the Haas drivers are experiencing this year. And Croker was able to keep on close, but then through the back straight there, you can see the Haas just starting to crawl away again. So I think that Hubert's definitely got a setup that's more geared towards straight line speed. That being said, now then, with use of the overtake, you can see there the green overtake light on the dashboard for the Williams, mounted to the cockpit rather than to the steering wheel like every other car in the field. Alongside now with the DRS, squeezing that all the way up as much as they dare.
That was very naughty.
A little bit naughty. Yeah, a little bit naughty, but as long as the Haas had all four wheels still on the circuit or space to do so. And we've got another safety car.
Where has this happened then?
5-second penalty for Rolfie for speeding in the pit lane. You'd think these drivers would learn by now.
Didn't you say something about rain as well? You said something about rain earlier, but the clouds don't seem to be sort of forming to create this sort of dark shroud over the track. And I feel like we're not going to get rain.
True.
Looks very bright.
That's very
right
true.
Now.
If we've got an approximate weather forecast setting on, then that would make sense, because then, of course, it can predict things that then either turn out to be wrong or delayed or early or whatever it happens to be. But, I mean, certainly, as you look this direction, though, That's a lot of grey in the sky as you look down towards sort of the back end of the circuit. So
Yeah.
potentially there's something coming that would come towards sort of Parabolica, the start and back straights first, rather than the Lesmos and Della Roggia, that sort of area of the circuit. But we'll have to wait and see. We're at 23 of 27 now, so it's only likely that the safety car is going to stay out here until the end of lap 25.
I think
it is coded into the game that it has to leave 2 laps of racing.
Yeah, the top 5 here can all pit because Ellie is 40 seconds behind them. So I feel like the majority of them must get on those fresh soft tyre compound, because I believe Dill, Sushi, Bambi all dove into the pits there to get on those soft tyres.
Yeah, and Croker and Hubert have decided to instead keep on going. Now, this then potentially creates a problem for D Hill and Bambi, and Sushi Trash, I should say, because given that the safety car, as we say, is probably going to come in at the end of next lap, they're going to now need to catch up, potentially still under a delta, to the safety car queue in just about a lap and a half's time. Now, given that they're 15 seconds behind from Hill to Hubert, that is, it is still pretty close between the pair of them, but and that gap is now steadily coming down. So yeah, in fact,
we see them. We just saw them
fine
there in the back of the screen as they just went around the first Lesmos there. So I feel like they will catch up, but I feel like there's going to be a stern defence put against D Hill here, because Crocker is not going to let this lead go away.
No, absolutely not. And the thing to bear in mind, of course, is there's going to be no DRS now until the end of the race. It's all going to be based on your corner exits and your setup and straight line speed and things like that that are going to determine these things. Also your ERS management, of course, because everybody is now going to be able to build back up their batteries to a certain degree. Those who are not yet on the back of the queue, of course, that's going to be a more difficult task for them. We've got the likes of, Ellie, for instance, is still 17 seconds off the back of the queue, and they've got now until the end of this lap to get there. Well, that's the thing, is they need to get the temperature in their tyres, and Michael, again, much like what we saw with Ideal Ben earlier on, although, of course, Ideal Ben, we believe, was behind Michael and was the one that tapped them round, sent them into the wall. You don't need to be this close to the back of a car in front of you during safety car conditions. You don't need to be within 3/10 as he was before. He seems to have dropped back a bit now, but that's not what you want to be doing. Now, the gap has come just under 10 seconds for Ellie there, so it's likely that they will get to the back of the queue by the end of this lap, as Hubert now goes into the pit. So that just leaves Croker as the one driver's decided to stay out during all of this and not go for a set of fresh softs at the end of the race. So this is either going to be a very easy overtake for Hill or a very difficult one, because of course with them being on hard tyres, Croker that being, there we go, Hubert just misses out slightly to Victorious there.
Hubert. He should have gone in earlier, because now he's just lost so many positions, and as well as that, everyone in front of him is on the soft compound tyres, so he's lost about 5 positions, and no one in front of him is really on the harder tyre apart from Crocker per se. But Crocker here has lost that buffer between him and Dill, that little bit that can maybe Dill gets Hubert on the overtake and then Crocker can go away slowly. However, that's not there anymore, so now Crocker's really got to focus on this restart.
Absolutely they do, yeah. And the other thing they've got to focus on, of course, is getting heat and maintaining heat in those old hard tyres. They're very, very far to the right there. It's there we go. And so for a moment, I thought that they'd just wheel spun up the rear tyres and then end up crashing into the wall in between the two Lesmos, but that wasn't the case, luckily for them. They're going to have a real task of it now. The other thing to bear in mind, of course, is that whilst Hill has been very quick, as there we go, confirmation of what we suspected, safety car in the end of lap 25 here, so we're going to have 2 laps worth of racing. If Croker can make life difficult for Hill, then that potentially means that Bambi and Sushi Trash end up getting into a bit of a sticky situation. Well, not a sticky situation, but they get the ability to take advantage of Hill being held up or distracted or off the racing line to then try and get a move themselves. Now, the one thing I should point out to everybody here as well is that it only takes one collision between 2 of the top 4 runners for F1 Ellie to get a podium here today.
That is true. Ellie is in the chance to get a podium. And I feel like with the amount of...
even is on the cards.
Yeah,
because you can see there's a time penalty for the car in front and behind her as well. So that's going to be interesting if she can maintain her cool. Everybody now is starting to go crazy, and now we go. Croker has bolted, and look at this. Bambi is right there with Hill. They are going to be fighting into turn 1. It will not be Hill versus Croker into turn number 1. Instead, it will be Bambi versus Hill, and that means the two championship protagonists are having a look at one another, sizing each other up down into turn number 1.
And is that Ellie gone straight on?
Ellie goes really deep into turn number 1. She's been able to recover back onto the circuit, not got any time penalties as a result, but she's dropped down the order here, down to P6. That means then that Michael and Pansat have both gotten by. Michael, of course, has that time penalty. So does Bambi, so it might be that she's able to recover those two positions, get back up to P4, but that is not going to be good for her. And
Crocker's down to P14. Something happened to Crocker.
Yeah,
he's dropped all the way down.
For Croker there.
So
massive incident.
Dill's back in the lead now.
Oh, I've just seen on a replay. So I've got this other driver's stream open who's in the race at the moment. It's delayed by about 30 seconds or so. They just lost it in the acceleration zone of on the exit of turn 2. Just completely spun up the rear tyres, spun the car around, and right down the back of the order as a result. That's a real shame for them.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and that means now it is a
side by side through a Scary.
When will they learn? It's
like
trying to make an overtake happen in Eau Rouge and Radi. Yeah, the rear's just and then almost reversing into. Oh, that's not safe. That's not safe at all. And then they're just getting on the power way too much. Pansat needs to just calm down and just gently squeeze on the power. Oh, this is pathetic. Let's watch someone else. I'm getting frustrated watching this driver. So there we go. Back to the lead. It is Hill versus Bambi. And Bambi, of course, carrying that time penalty. So they are likely to fall down to... Actually, if it's only 3 seconds, I forget off the top of my head how much it is that they have here. But if it's 3 seconds, they'll only drop down to the other podium position, down to P3. Sushi Trash will then take the second place honours. So it'll be an Aston 1-2.
3 second there for Bambi, 3 second for Vic, and 3 second for Rolfie, and a 6 second there for Michael.
There we are. So F1 Ellie has also now dropped too far back from Rolfie to be able to pick up that position, so it looks like she will finish no higher than P7 unless there happens to be a big incident further down the order, further up the order I should say. And now then, as we head through into Ascari, Bambi is close but no cigar it seems, as we head through the final sector now. Down the back straight, up towards the Parabolica, through the Alboreto curve they will go. It's been an absolutely tumultuous drive from Hill. An absolutely commanding lead from the very beginning of the Grand Prix. Only losing a couple of laps under the safety car in terms of their lead. And across the line comes Hill to take not only the win, but the fastest lap as well. Fantastic effort from them. And that means then that the rest of the field will start to finish off the race here. We've got Bambi coming second on the road, but that will be third after penalties are applied, which means it's an Aston Martin 1-2 with Sushi Trash alongside Hill. We've then got Exotic, Victorious, Rolfie, F1 Ellie comes home in P7. Remy Boy in 8th after all of the wars they've been involved in here today. That's a fantastic result for the McLaren driver. Jamsey comes home 9th, Michael in 10th, Hoovy Gaming 11th, and Pansat will come across the line no better than 12th. And certainly no worse than 12th either. So there we are. That has been your Italian Grand Prix. And Pansat still doesn't know how to gently apply the throttle. Let's not give them airtime. Let's just not bother watching them. So that is the result then. So to give you the full rundown of the order once more, it is Hill, Sushi Trash, Bambi, Exotic, Victorious, Rolfie, F1 Ellie, Remy Boy, Jamsey, Michael, Hoovy Gaming, Pansat, Hubert, Ideal Ben, Yanis, Yoshi Boy, Shrek Jesus, Cooper, Jack McCulloch, and Croker disqualified from this race. Presumably it was pointing the wrong way after the restart, drove backwards and against the flow of traffic, trying to then get the car turned around and got going again, and must have been disqualified as a result of that. So big shame for them, but
good day for
it
Aston.
happens sometimes.
1-2 for Aston here.
Very good day for Aston Martin. Yeah, maximum points scored. Of course, could have been just a bit better for Bambi. You can see there that after time penalties were applied, they were just 1.8 tenths of a second off of Sushi Trash. So if they'd been able to just stick that a little bit closer to Hill, they would have been able to take second place there. So that was very, very close. And a shame really for them, because then that means that they've lost, crucially, those extra points in that championship battle. They will still retain the lead, and I believe will now be the only driver to cross the 100 points barrier, but that means that Hill is now closing in, and it's a bad day for the likes of Hubert in Haas, who's obviously was third in the championship going into this one, will now have lost a position to Exotic, I believe, if my memory is right, and I remember wherever he's finished properly. I may not have. That might be total nonsense I'm talking. But certainly a good race then for the rest of the field. For those who finished, at least. So there we are. Any final thoughts from you here, Alex?
I've just got to say, that was one of the most dominant races I've seen by D Hill there, because he was overtaken on safety cars and all of this, and he always gathered the lead. He didn't make one mistake. He didn't cause one problem. He was fair throughout the whole race, and for me, D Hill, is my driver of the day.
It's absolutely a worthy accolade. I think there are two that spring to mind for me. One is Exotic, having taken that Red Bull all the way up almost to podium contention there. Very good drive from them. And, well, it's also going to be F1 Ellie, the other Red Bull. Again, as we were talking about in the broadcast earlier on, just staying out of trouble can often net you some great rewards. Now, they had that one incident we saw there going on the brakes into turn number 1 at the safety car restart, the final safety car restart of this race, where maybe they could have then gotten even more glory as a result. But as it is, still a very good drive to go from 19th up to 7th there. So the two Red Bulls worthy of nominations from me. So, that is everything done as far as our race is concerned this evening. Thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed that, then hit the follow button here on the CRC Twitch channel, CR Competizione, and we will be back in the future. We will have more races for you, more action, and hopefully some more great battles and less of the questionable action that we saw here today. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. I have been joined by Alex. My name is Daniel Gilligan. Thank you very much for watching, and good night.